A disastrous press conference earlier this morning by MAGA Mike Johnson and the MAGA Republicans regarding the government shutdown. Once again, MAGA Mike says there's absolutely no strategy that they have other than just, I guess, ripping away the health care of 20 million Americans. Here, play this clip.
Now, the calculus and the strategy on when I bring everybody back, people have said, are you going to change your strategy? And I've said to you all very plainly in good faith, we don't have a political strategy here. I don't have a strategy. We're just trying to do the right thing. We did what has been customary here and passed a simple CR.
Yeah, that rips away the health care of 20 million Americans while you go up there and lie about everything. But like the liars and projection artists that they are, they went up there during that press conference and said, you see, the Democrats are the ones going before the cameras and they're lying about everything. It's stunning to watch, MAGA Mike says. Here, play this clip.
Paychecks. And they go before cameras incredibly, and they just lie to the American people over and over. It's a stunning thing to watch.
Okay, well, MAGA Mike's then asked about why are you sending all your members on vacation right now? I mean, it's just getting a little weird that you're not even there working anymore while the American people are suffering. And they see that the Republicans don't want to talk to Democrats, yet alone negotiate with Democrats. And here's what MAGA Mike says.
Questions? Far right. Yes, sir.
The CR is only one way to fund the government, and some of your members are kind of uncomfortable with being out on recess for a month. So why not bring everybody back, work through the appropriations that you haven't passed yet, and sort of do an end run around Hakeem Jeffries?
Yeah, so a couple things. First of all, 99.5% of the House Republicans understand exactly what we're doing. They agree with it. We talk regularly. We'll have another conference call later today. They have been out doing very essential, very important work in their districts, and their constituents appreciate that. I mean, they've been everywhere because, as Chairwoman McClain said, they've got to help cover the bases for the crisis that's been created by the Democrats.
The crisis that's been created by the Democrats, just extend the subsidies. It's a very simple thing. Extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies or millions of Americans are going to lose their health care and die. Like, this is not a joke, but MAGA Mike thinks it's just a talking point and he tries to blame Democrats. Here's what he says about, he goes, this health crisis is the Democrat health crisis. This is what they're pushing this morning. Here, play this clip.
They're covering their own tail. They're out here decrying the so-called forthcoming health care crisis, they say. It's the one that they themselves created. The Democrats created Obamacare. They're the ones that created a subsidy with an expiration date. They're the ones that did all of this. Republicans are trying to fix it. And they're trying to blame Republicans for the crisis they themselves created. They cry foul when we won't bail them out of their own shutdown.
You won't bail them out of, what are you talking? And the American people aren't buying this. I mean, I saw the recent Gallup poll that shows now that by a +7 margin, Americans identify as Democrats over Republicans. It's been a switch from just the past year. I want to bring in Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren. You see what's taking place every day. They go up there. It's him. It's Congresswoman McClain. Today they brought up James Comer to spread lies about the Epstein files and talk about how they're not really going to release anything. But they're doing this every morning. So, you know, as a senator who's been in the trenches fighting for people's health care, I mean, what do you make of it when you see that every morning?
You know, I make two things of it. The first one is they really are telling us what their values are. When Mike Johnson starts out by saying, we're just doing what is right. Really? Taking away health care from 15 million people in America is what you think is right, and driving up healthcare costs, the cost of your insurance premium for literally tens of millions of people across this country. That's what you think is right, and that's worth getting out there and fighting for. And the rest of it, you just want to say, wow, talk about gaslighting here. Remember, we had a budget, it's going through, and then in July, the Republicans passed that one big, beautiful bill, as they called it. And that's where they put in the provisions to cut health care for 15 million Americans and drive up costs for everyone else. And we said to them at the time, we said to them in July, hey, listen, we're not going to sign off for a budget that permanently cuts access for millions of Americans. We're not going to do that. And they are shocked to discover that when it comes around time to get that budget done by September 30th, that the Democrats won't sign off. We want to have access to health care for those people. And we're not asking for a new healthcare provision. I mean, this is part of what gets me here, Ben. Our healthcare system is broken. That is true. There's a lot that's wrong with our healthcare system. But what we're asking for is, please don't just tear it all to the ground. At least leave people with the coverage they had. Don't drive up costs for millions of families. That's what we're asking for at this point. And yeah, we need to fix healthcare going forward. But please don't do this to millions of Americans. You know, it's so wrong. And yet the way that the Republican Speaker of the House can just roll off that this is what's right and it's all somebody else's fault really does remind you their values are not about protecting the American people. They're not about trying to help families make it to the end of the month financially. Nope. Their values are all about the politics they want to play and bending the knee to Donald Trump.
Then when you ask them, well, what's your plan? Well, for many weeks so far, they had no answer to it, and MAGA Mike would just ramble. But now they basically cite the budget, the disastrous budget bill, which they call the big, beautiful bill. And they go, it's in there. We gave $50 billion to rural hospitals. Like, you took away $200 billion, right? If somebody steals $1,000 from you and gives you back 200, they stole $800 from you. And they're bragging about the theft as the giving. And then they say that is their health care. They go, that's their plan. I'm like, what? It's not a plan. What are you talking about?
Right. You know, and just put it in the bigger context. Not only because they understand that what they passed in what they call their one big beautiful bill is going to close a lot of rural hospitals all around the country. And I should also say, close a lot of community health centers, close down a lot of the places that Americans go for their first line health care, close all that down. They say, okay, we're going to give you back, just like you said, a little bit of money. But I tell you what, they got $40 billion they're willing to send to Argentina. They're just not willing to put that money into the healthcare system here and into making sure that people can afford their healthcare premiums, or that we keep nursing homes open, or that people on disability can still get access to wheelchairs and home health aides. That's the distinction for the Republicans. Donald Trump wants to spend $40 billion on Argentina and maybe more. The answer is Republicans just roll right along with it. But nobody's out there to fight for making sure that money and investment goes to American families who are struggling every day to pay the bills and make it to the end of the month.
I just think about it that the Trump regime is taking away health care from 20 million Americans.
Yep.
They're cutting programs like special needs programs within the Department of Education, which I want to talk about too, while giving $40 billion, as you mentioned, to Argentina, which not only should shock the conscience of every American, regardless of political party. Not only is it offensive, but it's also fiscally stupid. Like, it's not an effective strategy. I'm not sure what the end game is, regardless, other than to prop up Javier Milei for the elections coming up. But like, if you look at it, the Argentino peso is weakening on this idea that this currency swap is stupid, that it's not going to work, and you're just throwing good money at bad. And every economist said you're just going to be throwing away your money also. And now we can't even get banks in the United States to find the collateral to even lend the money. So banks are freaking out. So it actually has a cascading effect on our economy, which is struggling, in addition to it just being offensive in light of what we're talking about with special needs programs being cut and healthcare being ripped away.
Right. So sticking with the soybeans for just a minute, the Argentina deal. You know, Donald Trump got asked about this because, remember, the start of all this is Trump does the whole chaotic tariffs thing. And China, which had been a huge purchaser of American soybeans, China just says, we're not going to do it. We're not going to buy from the Americans anymore. Argentina cuts a deal with China. And the week after Argentina cuts that deal so that China's buying all the soybeans from Argentina, and our farmers have just been left out of the deal, that's when Donald Trump announces his first $20 billion to help Argentina. And of course, as we all know, $20 billion evidently is not enough. So now he's raised it and he wants to get them $40 billion in aid. And when he got asked about it yesterday, he talked about, oh, how tough things are for the people in Argentina and how hard they're fighting for their economic survival. Look around America. Look at all the farmers who are sitting there on soybeans that they got no buyer for now. And what about them? What about them? What about families who are now today looking at the new reports coming in about how much your insurance is going to cost next year, looking at that and saying, well, damn, we may have to choose between whether or not we pay the rent and whether or not we get insurance. So this is what happens when you've got a guy who thinks he's a king and he wants to help out his political buddy down in Argentina. And the fact that it's not in the interests of the United States of America, that the people who get helped are his political ally. And I should also say, the hedge funds that had bought the Argentine debt, hedge funds run by friends of Donald Trump's Secretary of Treasury, that those people get helped. And Trump and the Republicans evidently just don't care about American farmers, don't care about American families. And how do I know that? Just watch what they're doing.
I remember when the reporter asked him the question, it was a female reporter, and and she said, well, why are you doing this in Argentina? And Trump's like, look, lady, you don't know what you're talking about, lady. Argentina, they're fighting for their life, lady. You understand me? This is why you don't. And I was like, watch that. I'm like, what? And then he goes, we want to screw over our soybean farmers in America? I'll raise you our cattle ranchers. And then he goes, we're going to go and buy the beef now from Argentina. And then our cattle ranch, what do you mean you're going to buy the beef from Argentina? We're struggling. So it's this cascading domino effect. So now we're going to do beef from there and screw over our cattle ranchers? It's wild.
Exactly. He dumps on American farmers, and now he decides to dump on American ranchers. What happened to America first? It's looking a lot like it's Argentina first now.
I know the issue as well of the cuts to special needs services is near and dear to your heart, especially with your background. I have a family member who receives benefits from special needs services in his school. So it's near and dear to my heart too. But the fact that we're talking a lot about healthcare because obviously major issue across the board, though, right? Their priorities are shown like speak to the special needs program cuts because why are you doing that?
So Donald Trump, as you know, they've been on the attack for the Department of Education from the very beginning, but they have recently announced in effect that they're just shutting down all of the assistance that comes in for special needs kids. And I just want to remind everybody what this is. This is the federal money that helps a local school district when they have a child in the local school district who needs extra help in order to be able, say, to go to classes with the other kids. So sometimes it's an aid that's special. Sometimes it's that they need a wheelchair. Sometimes they need special acoustic so they can hear the teacher, and the teacher needs to wear a special piece of a lavalier so that the child is able to hear them. Those things cost money. And the local school districts can't always afford it. So what's happened is after the United States passed the American with Disabilities Act back in the 90s, we started putting money into local districts, saying there would be money that would follow the kids who need this help. And I just want to be blunt. In the context of the big federal government, it's not a lot of money, but it's money that's absolutely essential for every one of those kids. And now the Trump administration just wants to cut that off. And that's going to mean for kids who are already struggling, kids who have to work extra hard to be able to stay in those classrooms, kids who have to work extra hard to be able to build a future for themselves, cutting them off and just saying nothing for you. What kind of a what kind of a person does that? How does Donald Trump decide that he's going to lop off the futures of those kids? And what kind of Republicans in the House and the Senate won't even stand up and say, look, that they've gone along with a lot, but they won't go along with this. Those kids that he's going to hurt, they're not Democratic kids. They're not Republican kids. They're just kids. They're our kids, and those kids deserve our support. And for Donald Trump to take that away, it's just cruel beyond measure.
And finally, Senator Warren, you've been very outspoken about Trump destroying the East Wing of the White House. Trump promised that he wasn't going to touch the existing facade. He said that he was going to be the one who paid for it himself. And we know that it's now apparently private corporations. The Wall Street Journal reported some list. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure we have a full official list yet. I'd love to know about that. But he did this also on a fraudulent pretext that he was going to pay for it, no one else, because this could trigger lots of quid pro quo ethical laws. There's a National Planning Commission also that's required to make these assessments before there's structural changes. The building doesn't belong to him. I mean, it belongs to us. It's the people's house. So I don't even know how he has the legal authority to just take bulldozers and knock down the East Wing like that. And it literally caused me a great deal of I was very emotional and got a lot of when I saw the White House destroyed yesterday. And I saw it, and I know that with everything going on, people are like, well, why are you focused on that? To me, it's just a symbol. There's a government shutdown. He's doing that. That's the people's house. He's wrecking it. And it also shows to me he never wants to leave the place, because why else would you do that to the White House?
There's another part to it too, though, Ben. Follow the money. Donald Trump promised he was going to pay for this himself, but instead he calls on giant corporations, billionaires, these big CEOs to come in and pay for it. And this is the classic one more time. Who comes into the room? Oh, the heads of companies that are looking to do a merger, and they're going to need approval from the Trump administration. A company that's trying to settle a lawsuit, and they're going to need approval from this administration. I got to tell you, this looks like the classic shakedown. In other words, this is not to benefit the American people. This is Donald Trump one more time getting exactly what Donald Trump wants and using the power of the federal government to be able to hand out favors to his friends and, of course, to try to punish his enemies. So I actually think this business of how he's calling in the billionaires to fund something that he wants done, billionaires who have business in front of the government, I think that this is a lot more serious than looks at first blush. And we're sending letters. We're trying to launch an investigation into this. Sure, it would be nice if we could get some Republicans to help us with that. It would be nice if a few Republicans in the Senate or the House would stand up and say, don't tear down the people's house. And by golly, don't take money from a bunch of billionaires in order to do it and rebuild something that is in the image of Donald Trump.
Before we go, Senator Warren, the No Kings peaceful protests, I think, really showed that people are fed up with this. A lot of the data we have as well is reflecting that. I saw your speech that you gave during one of the No Kings protests, which was very powerful. So I do think that there's hope going forward.
Yep. We had, I think the latest report I've heard is over 100,000 people in Boston and in cities and towns all around Massachusetts. And what I saw from that was a reminder of what true patriotism is all about. True patriotism is standing up to a would-be king. True patriotism is peacefully protesting on behalf of our democracy and standing up for our beloved United States of America. That was a patriotic day Saturday.
Senator Warren, thanks for everything. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers. Thanks, everybody.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.